The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence. While generally considered safe for work by way of content, some language may be considered offensive by more sensitive viewers or listeners.
Three, two, and hello and welcome back to Keep Your Hat On, the show where hell even we don't know where we're going to go. I'm Andrew Scott, of course, along with my good friends, Ty Robert Anthony and Christopher Bacano and Dr. Mark Peterson. And, I don't even know when the hell you people are all seeing us right now. Things are weird. We recorded the April show on March 24th. That hasn't happened yet. Part of that is because I have no internets, and I have not had internets for about 9 days now. We had a windstorm. What's that, Ty?
They were supposed to come see you Monday, weren't they?
No, they're supposed to come see me on the 30th. And Ty, give me 2 more points of volume from you. Yeah, no, that's, if anybody is ever considering CenturyLink, don't. We told them one of us is disabled, both of us work from home, and they're like, yeah, as soon as we can get it out there is the 30th of the month. And we waiting for earlier, if there's a dropout, when is there ever a dropout for somebody wanting their internet thing? With our line, this is the first time in 4 years that my partner has gone into work for an entire week. Now Zoom is saying my internet connection is unstable. No shit. That is because I am using my phone.
But for me, you are imaging as if you were like almost cartoonish.
Yeah, you're running here at 2400
Is
baud.
it that bad?
It's
Oh my god.
It's very
like
1996.
That movie where they filmed actors.
It's a little Max Headroomy, by the way. That's where I was going to go.
Oh yeah, it's got a rotoscope effect. Yeah,
I was just going to say, Ty, I think you're probably talking about a Scanner Darkly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It runs really, really.
Let me see if I can change my video settings to stupid.
Oh, don't we all wish we could just do that?
Honest to God, right? Okay. I turned off HD.
Okay, you got a little bit better.
You're smoothing up a little there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much what I can do. I am coming to you live.
Here is stay with the mob.
I'm coming to you live via 5G, man. So where's my tinfoil hat? But it's been a little bit mental. We're gonna try to keep this show short for many reasons today.
Is that a third eye?
Who's
growing? You.
Oh, is it?
Nick Danger, third eye.
Dun, dun, dun.
There we go. There, I took my third eye and moved it out of frame.
I'd like a
do
large
this,
pizza,
though.
no anchovies. Okay.
There. So anyways, briefly, everybody kind of round the horn. Ty, how's your intervening month and a half been?
Wow.
Oh, great. I'm up for my first surgery. Yay.
Did you finally get that scheduled?
Yeah. I mean, in a heartbeat, quick.
What's
give
it
people
for?
give people a quick breakdown.
So, I have I've been having some sinus problems. We've been having some ear problems, more importantly. And what we did is we narrowed it down to polyps. And when we took the CT scan, the only unaffected nasal area is the one that's in the back of the head.
Man. Wow.
You know, when
Yeah,
the
you
doctor
want to
says,
get that
hey,
taken. You need that
anything
done.
other than
when the doctor says, hey,
yeah.
after surgery, if you start tasting things sweet, you need to go to the ER because that's brain fluid, right? And
Awesome.
some you know, bleeding into the eye, and you might have some ocular muscles that are a little bit bruised.
So like no ice cream after surgery.
But if you can't see red,
You-
you need to go to the ER, emerge quickly. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
But these are just the 1% problems, right?
Well, you are, as a ginger, you're a special snowflake anyways. So, you know,
And then yeah, and then the cool thing was is I felt a little comforted by the fact that there's a CT scan and that they have cameras that they're going to go in there with, right? They're going to be able to see everything they're doing it as they're doing it in real time.
Wow.
yeah.
Apparently, at one point, it used to be that the surgeon had to know their anatomy extremely well because what they were going to do is they were going to do the whole thing by feel.
Yeah.
That does not sound like something you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Especially when
no.
you're up in these areas.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Hey,
No.
what is that? Do I turn left here? Do I?
Oh,
Oh, that doesn't look good.
whoops, lobotomy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Kind of. Yeah.
He'll be so much
Just
happier.
yeah. Just so long as your doctor is last name something like Timpani or something like that, you know, or you get a little bit of a
Or
relief in
Hazard,
your
Dr. Hazard.
Dr. Hazard. Yeah. So, Chris, how have you been doing this past couple?
I was doing great up until this last week when I got walloped with just a nasty ass head cold that put me in bed for 3 days. 3 COVID tests, all came back clean, just a bad cold. And I'm just kind of like, wow, are colds getting worse or am I getting
See,
wimpier?
I did that a
Older.
few months ago. I
You're
had that
getting
same
less
thing.
able to handle the common cold.
And
Welcome.
that's what it was. That's what it was. Is I had this really bad cold, and the thing that came up for me was, you know, I have not had a virus in like more
Since
than a
COVID?
year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, COVID being the only one, but everything else I haven't touched in more than 2 years. So when that common cold came my way, it smacked me, and I am not the only one because Chris, you did it, and I've had some other folks in my life.
Yeah, I've had a couple of colds this last year too. Yeah, that were just
Oh,
brutal.
we're all turning weak. You
Well,
know,
I guess so.
I think it's that we've been largely isolated, and so our immune responses have downregulated.
Well, also,
possibly so.
doesn't COVID also like sets us up for other stuff, right? I mean, that's part of the
There's
process.
there's so much stuff going on. You know, this now that we're 4 years in and we've got more science over our shoulder, they're starting to understand just what a roto-rooter COVID is to your immune system and your immune response. And it's got all sorts of other long-term and lingering effects that we couldn't see without the benefit of time and distance under the wheel. So,
I
Dr.
just
Martin,
find, well, I just speaking while we're talking
go
about
ahead.
that. Yeah, I just figured out here this last week that my sense of smell has been degraded. And I figured this out
Still,
because
hey?
it's left over from the COVID I had months ago. I can't smell the coffee when I wake up in the morning now. I have to go
Oh,
downstairs.
there's a bellwether for you.
Mm.
It was like,
Yeah, you not smelling the coffee in the morning?
right, that's not good. Anyway,
Damn
so
it,
but it's
doctor,
like,
wake up and smell the coffee.
well, I love that, that's the reason I got the coffee maker was so I could, you wake up in the morning and smell the coffee,
Mhm.
and it's like, I got to go down to the kitchen now. And that's when, thank you very much. That's when I should have killed off my notifications. That's when I can actually smell the coffee when I get up close to it, but it's like down the room and stuff. It's like, what?
Okay, so your sensitivity level seems to have attenuated
Yeah,
downward.
that's what happened. And I'm gonna just
here's a suggestion for you because I've had and that's referred to as anosmia. I've had
What'd you call
anosmia
me?
now for 3 years. but for a different reason. Back when my kidneys all went wacky on me, I was on some high test antibiotics for a long time. I was on antibiotics for 8 months.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And long-term antibiotic use does the same thing. It kills off the cultures in a number of ways. And my hasn't been the same. However, I have discovered that something that has helped and has probably brought it back to maybe about 80%, and it might be worth looking into for you, Mark, is zinc picolinate. It is a very bioavailable form of zinc. Our smell, our olfactory senses are essentially powered by salt and zinc. And we know that, number one, COVID drops your zinc levels pretty significantly. And number two, COVID impacts the permeability of your mucous membranes in your olfactory beak.
Interesting.
I started taking just regular counter zinc, work a little bit to this more bioavailable form of zinc, and within 2 days, because my problem was my nose was hallucinating. I wound up smelling, and anybody in the Midwest understands this smell. I smelled the furnace kicking on in October. I smelled that slight burning dust smell. Yeah, exactly right. But I smelled it all the time. All the time. It smelled like bad incense all the time. And after 2-3 days of zinc picolinate, that went away, and it hasn't come back for as long as I.
Send me a link later. We'll yak. Otherwise, in other news, in other non-nasal news.
Yeah, in other news.
The other non-nasal news, I was talking with Chris about this. I'm retiring, and there's been some weird fallout about the whole retirement thing, and I'm kind of chewing on this because people keep congratulating me, and it's funny because they're congratulating me for doing something, but technically retirement is like not doing
doing something.
Specifically not. This set me off on a whole tear, which is going up on the cow. About I got to thinking about this retirement.
And by the way, link to the Motley Cow down here. Okay.
Thank you. The Substack. Yeah. Retirement means three completely different. The word, three different things. You could retire, which means putting new tires on the car. Right. You can withdraw from society, retirer, which is old French, and then you could get tired again, which is weird because technically by retiring you're getting untired from having been tired. But when you retire, are you getting tired again? And then, so of course, because of my brain problem, I looked this up. I looked up the etymologies, and
you mean the problem that you have one?
That the problem is that it makes me do things like this.
Yes. Word nerd.
But here's where it gets weird. It's a tale of two cities, my friend, because the retire is etymologically Old French, and tire, as in to get tired, to become weary. That's Old English.
Yeah.
And so now we have French and English at each other again in this contradictory mode. I have no idea what any of this means yet because I haven't retired yet.
Another 100 years war.
It's coming. It's coming. And I will know after May 19th is my checkout date. So there you go. But I will just finish with this. I was like, if I had known there was this much paperwork.
Oh, jeez. Well, I want to be able to say to you, Doctor, congratulations that you made it this far.
Oh, that's true. Well,
is true.
It is true, but it's like I got to work in a place, and I'm going to get all maudlin when we have our closing ceremonies in a couple of weeks. But I got to work in a place for like 36 years with people I liked. Who gets to do that, right? It's
and
like,
I gotta say, I try to explain to people, I attended 3-4 universities, universities. I went well, I did some time at WCTC.
He was on the 10-year plan. He was on the 10-year plan, guys.
A lot of
Yeah,
people
I
do
did.
that.
Yeah.
I did some time at MATC as well, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
started out at University of Wisconsin, Washington County. Did some time, did a semester at UWM while I was there, and then did a semester at Marquette. People that I talk to do not understand what an incredible crew of professors and academic professionals we had at Washington County. And
even I was surprised when I got there, by the way. I was, I've loved to joke that it was like when I ended up out there, I remember thinking, okay, who are these losers that I'm working with? And then it turned out it was like losers just like you.
it was all people who got there and went, oh, you know what? This is the best of all worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. Refugees from industrial education.
Right.
We all were.
I'll take a moment here. I think we referenced this in an earlier podcast, maybe not, but Dr. Mark, you and I both had the deep privilege of being in a building with Dr. Joel Rodney, who was our campus dean, and he just recently passed away.
Yeah.
And he was such a good guy, and such an for me, he was the archetype of what an administrator should be.
Yeah, what they're supposed to be. He was, yeah.
Because he actually listened to his students.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a great guy.
The powers he was. And he holds a special place in my heart, above and beyond academia, because he had polio and walked with braces, and spent most of his time on campus in a wheelchair. And of course, for me as a disabled person, and also having spent time as his TA, as his research assistant, and knowing that Dr. Rodney actually worked on the Americans with Disabilities Act, and seeing somebody and being able to make really off-color disabled jokes with my dean was a
pretty good stuff.
A treat that's hard to describe.
That's how he built up the foundation. It's huge out there, and it was because Joel would get on his crutches and he would corner the donors with the crutches because they wouldn't want to step over his crutches to get away from him. Well,
and that's just it. We
deliberately.
We would kind of share that stuff, in that he and I both had this understanding of, we don't want to be treated differently by default, but we're willing to play our disabilities to our advantage when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And he was very
everything you said
about doors for him that got opened because of his disability.
Oh, yeah.
You were saying, I'm sorry?
I just wanted you to know that you're stuttering. I mean, pictures and not you physically.
Is it really bad? All right. Well, I tell you what, we're going to try here to have a little conversation about we're not doing any commercial breaks. Obviously, this whole show is under duress.
You could say you're phoning it in, Andrew.
Wow. Oh, wait. Do I got
there's
that? Hold
the
on.
name of the episode right there.
I'm phoning it in.
Anyways, yeah. I'll try to not talk so much then if my signal is coming bad. I read an article that is listed here right now, and it's about essentially a reappraisal of sociopathy, and how there's so many shows now in popular culture where the sociopath is either, we'd think of them as an anti-hero, but is also the hero. We've got shows like Dexter, which has now been on for like 10 years or something. In various, and then, of course, Breaking Bad, if you honestly think about it, Walter White was a sociopath. And now we've got these new ones that have cropped up. There's a lot of it going on. Chris, by the way, just to remind you, you're always on camera now in this show.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
What are you saying?
One of the things that article brought up, I'm not here to discuss sociopathology, but one of the things that article brought up is how really one of the first examples of badness that we as a society here in the West kind of embraced, that people completely missed the point on, and that's what this article pointed out to me, is this idea of what's called the bad fan. Somebody who completely loses the plot on, Walter White isn't a hero. Okay? Dexter isn't a hero. But this goes all the way back to like Archie Bunker and Norman Lear. And it used to drive Norman Lear absolutely crazy when people loved Archie Bunker for the wrong reasons. And I got a bit of an experience of this with members of my family, who shall remain nameless, who liked watching All in the Family because they liked hearing Archie's bad views on social issues spoken out loud.
Yeah.
And totally missed the plot on, that's because he's kind of a rotten person.
Well,
Chris?
and I think part of what fed that adoration of Archie Bunker is that the one intellectual foil that was provided to Archie was Michael Stivic, who always came across as strident and loud and obnoxious.
Owning the libs got its start there.
I mean,
Meathead.
He became the archetype of the busybody up on a soapbox, high horse, finger pointing liberal, and that I'm sure is still very much in the minds of people on the right today.
Oh, it's all they use, right? Yeah.
And so I mean, I appreciate that Norman Lear didn't like that people weren't getting Archie Bunker, but it's kind of on him a little bit because he wrote a caricature of a foil to Archie Bunker.
Well, and I think part of that is just the brilliance of Norman Lear in that he would never send up a soft target without trying to at least balance it by the portrayal of its antithesis and go, both kind of got stuff that you can really rankle your nose at.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think a really good, and I agree with Chris. A lot of it is script writing, right, and the way that it's presented, and we all know this, but things like oh my gosh, movie. It's a DC comic, but it really made these heroes to be less than heroes a lot of times.
Well, there's a number of things going on in the DC cinematic universe or the DC extended universe now,
It was
where you're right.
It was a 3-hour movie, and people were just like up in arms over it when it came out. I can't remember. Oh my God.
A DC movie, not Deadpool. You're not talking about Deadpool.
No. That's Marvel.
Yeah.
We're talking. I want to say The Outsiders, but I know it's not The Outsiders.
Well, if you can't, take a second and try to find it. Yeah. And it is kind of interesting that you bring up superheroes. And more time dealing with this, recently and kind of in the last 5 or 6 years and on an academic level, this study of, and for me, I mean, full disclosure, I'm not motivated by out of superhero dumb, back in high school and didn't really go back. Did some stuff, and I'm probably breaking up again.
Did I get lost?
I enjoyed some graphic novelizations of certain things. I stayed, as far as that goes, I stayed with like Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett stuff that were, right? I wasn't superhero motivated. But you and a colleague of yours did quite a bit of work with superheroes as they kind of are archetypes for greater, larger
yeah,
ideas.
as mythological
And
archetypes, right? Yeah,
right.
sure.
And
Sure.
superheroes are really, I think, one of the prime places now in society and culture for us where you see this interesting balancing act of hero anti-hero. I mean, and really, all you got to do is look at what is now the number one superhero in the world. Used to be Superman, and there was no question about his motivations then. But the number one superhero in our life and times now is Iron Man, Tony Stark. And
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
that's one of the characters that I followed longest. And that's because Tony Stark's primary story, his primary backstory, is he was an alcoholic, abusive loser.
Right. Yeah.
Very womanizing, very party boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steeped in privilege until he pissed it all away and had to rebuild from scratch.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, I'm interested in hearing from you kind of why does one segment of our population now view an anti-hero as a hero, even though it's very intellectually obvious that they're being held up as a dire warning and not a goal?
Other than stupid. That can't be
Yeah.
the answer.
Good point.
Oh, say that again, Robert.
I said, other than stupid, that can't be the answer.
Other than just stupid.
That because the person is stupid, they fell for it.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this too. There's a bunch of ways you can think about this. One of the functions that mythology plays, right? And if we treat them treat superheroes or anything on TV, I think falls under the heading of mythology for us, because it's a way of, the function is to create a narrative that puts us back into touch with reality in some way. And, as opposed to explaining it. So these are not explanations. This is I got this from Campbell, actually. This is like, I can't unsee this. Explanations are how you figure out the facts and the truth about things and so on. But you can have a lot of facts that you're out of relationship with, right? There's all sorts of facts we know that are like meaningless, right? Because we're not in relationship to them. And then it's the narratives or the stories that put us into relationship to those facts that then create the meaning, right? So it's like those facts are only meaningful when they have to do with your life or when you can relate to them. So if I take a mundane example first, global warming is a really interesting way to think about this, because you can cite facts that people who don't believe in global warming all day. And this was like a complete mystery to me. It's like, what's the problem, man? Just do that. And the answer is they'll accept the facts. The facts just aren't meaningful to them because they're out of relationship with it. This is like, we saw this for years with conservatives who were opposed to gender fluidity in any form whatsoever, until, of course, their own kids came home and came out. And then it's like,
and then it became real.
Yeah, even Vice President Cheney, suddenly it was like, oh, I guess lesbians are like humans too. It's like, anyway, but suddenly it's personal.
Yeah.
So when
can I introduce you to my daughter? Yeah,
right. Suddenly, but so in a sense, what's happened with the comic books is what's happened with over time is that a lot of the mythology that permeates our culture is designed to put us into relationship with a world that hasn't existed for 2,000 years. That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
And we need these new mythological structures, these new kinds of stories to put us into relationship to the world that we're in. The heroes that were the classic examples, coming down historically within let's just stay inside of Western culture for this.
Yeah.
It's hard to relate to them now, and so what happened over time, because it's outside of most people's experience, right? But being like, so Batman, being just sick of crime because people in your family you've lost somebody, right? Or, all the vigilante movies and stuff. Yeah, Watchmen is a great example, Ty. Actually, I'm published on Watchmen on the HBO Watchmen series, which was fantastic. by the way.
You are?
It was brilliant.
How did that sneak by me?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, the article I wrote, or the Watchmen?
Yeah. No, the
Oh,
article you wrote.
I'll send you guys a copy. Yeah, it's actually what we did is we reorganized. Chris and I wrote. We just we fit it into Campbell's hero's journey.
Oh, and by the way, name check the Chris in question here,
Oh,
not the dude
Chris
sitting there.
Yogurst,
Yeah.
young master Yogurst, that bastard. Oh, I hate him so much. This is like, he's a really good friend now, but it's like, he's hardworking. He's already written a bunch of books.
I remember you, when you first started dealing with Chris, you actually shot me a message that said, "This cat is pissing me off. Watch him. He's going to chew up the world."
He wrote this big book. He wrote a couple of books in the last 3 years. He wrote this great book called Hollywood Hates Hitler, which was about
fantastic title, by the way.
He's really good at this too. If you're listening, Chris, don't pay attention to this part. But
right.
But he found that there were these Senate hearings. I'm sorry, we're wandering off a little bit here, but he found this guy has a knack for finding historically interesting stuff that nobody has bothered to look at. There were all these hearings, these America First kind of hearings in the U.S. Senate back in 37, 38, like that, trying to decide whether the Jewish menace in Hollywood was forcing America into World War II. And it's like, I remember he said this. I said, "What?" He goes, "I went to the archives in Washington, and when he opened them, nobody had been in there since 1940. Wow. So he wrote this book about all. It's like, dude. Oh, and then just lately, the other one. And so everybody should read these because he also writes really well, which is even more offensive on a certain level. But he wrote this great. His latest big book now was the history of the Warner Brothers.
Oh, cool.
And, which is a dirty history as well.
Yeah.
There's stuff he couldn't even put in.
I bet.
But and I said, "Wait a minute, the history of Warner Brothers? Nobody's ever done that?" He goes, "No." So it's like, anyway, he's really good at this stuff. Well, anyway, but we did this thing on the Watchmen, which was really cool because we had to re-genderize the hero's journey so it would accommodate people wherever they happen to be. Because historically, the Western cultural paradigm is heteronormative, cis-centric, and right, all that. And that was simply, when Campbell put together the hero's journey, he was using what was available from Western culture, and that was it. But we're not in that time now. And the hero of the Watchmen series on HBO was a woman, right? And we had to reconstitute the whole thing to make sense of the hero's journey using non-gendered language. And that turned out to be actually, and nobody's done this yet, well, we did, I guess. That turned out to be unbelievably easy because all we did was we operationally defined the moments of the hero's journey in ways that applied to anybody. So, okay. Well, usually villains and anti-heroes, if I'm coming out of Campbell here, usually you can track a villain or an anti-hero to somebody who has been on, the reason, by the way, here's the presupposition. The hero's journey, the arc of the hero's journey, maps into Jungian psychology. It sort of maps into Maslow. It maps into the sort of evolutionary progress any human psyche goes through, right? Growing up, we all hit puberty. We all have to figure out what that means. We have relationships with other people. We have spiritual connections that begin to pop up, all this stuff, right? So anyway, the mythology so typically the anti-heroes or villains are people who have been along this track of human evolution and then just either fossilized at one point, right, and fixated on one particular piece. They didn't get over mom, they didn't get over dad, they didn't get over their parents, they didn't get over what society told them they were supposed to be like. And you can do that by caving into society or by doing the opposite. So
they fell for the sirens.
I think that's right. Instead of putting the wax in their ears and tying themselves to the mast, they jumped and hit the rocks, or pick a metaphor you like.
Kind of like the people that are cheering on the bad guys.
But so even those people are kind of enjoying the fact that they don't have to be responsible.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to suggest.
The world isn't organized the way it was. I mean, the world's become a chaotic place, and I think we're seeing that in the parodies. So, this is the genius of Deadpool to me, frankly, is like, even in the first one where he goes back and he kills himself, and he says, I'm just cleaning up the timeline.
Yeah.
And so what's happened with a
Yeah.
lot of this too, and let me just I'll give you one more little weird detail that makes sense of
Friggin'
this,
brilliant.
is all mythology, in originally Plato uses the word specifically to describe the kind of language used to create origin stories. And so mythos is always about origins of some sort. And this is one of the reasons why. So when we do this in class over the years, one of the things we've concentrated more and more on is that they keep tweaking the origin stories for everybody. They had to tweak the Superman origin stories. They tweaked Batman a little bit, and they keep changing them a little here and there. The Watchmen stuff, and why? And the answer is because our understanding of the origins has changed, and we need to find a new way to be into relationship with those. And so we see this. I'm just going to raise the big elephant in the room, which is that a previous political candidate for president seemed to give Americans permission to misbehave in ways they had not done since before the civil rights marches. How about that?
And that brings me around to where I am with this. First off, a little bit of housekeeping for me in this whole. I remember reading somewhere, and I thought it was a very salient point that, and this is in particular to male superhero. There's really only 5 models of a male superhero.
Hey,
It's Homer, Heracles, Macbeth, Hamlet, or Perseus. You can pretty much make any story from a male superhero fit one of those story arcs in a hero's description.
That seems quite reasonable, by the way. Yeah.
You've got man against nature, man against nature is still Perseus and the Minotaur, because the Minotaur is a mutant form of nature.
Yeah.
Macbeth has got the whole family thing. Hamlet's got some family thing in it. Homer, it just stands alone. The other thing, though, and this is kind of where I am with going back to my original point of why are people missing the point?
But you see, we see that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, finish your thought, Ty.
I was going to say, I see that in not only just in television, and it's more dangerous now. I mean, you got people that think they know how to lawyer based on Law and Order, right?
Bingo. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But we've also had, hey, we still have, people with, cans of beer in their hand going, keep on rocking in the free world.
Yeah. And that's, thank you. Keep on rocking in the free world, born in the USA.
Right.
Again,
people who I use pre-rocking because I use keep on rocking because that predates Born in the USA, but it's the same thing. It's the same.
No, I think Born in the USA.
I think lyrics like that.
All right. Point of order. I think Born in the USA was out before Rockin' in the Free World by Neil Young.
By about 6 or 7 years.
No, I think it's closer than that. But regardless of that, the thing for me is this idea of, and this is kind of where I nerd out in one of Mark's dark corners of philosophy, and the idea of metaphor. Okay.
Yeah.
And the word metaphor, the Greek winds up meaning to carry over, to get over and take something with you. Which also has some interesting Buddhist-y business in it that I won't go into.
I bet, yeah.
But this idea that people are missing something, and again, a metaphor means, oh, I get this thing, I need to now carry this into my non-metaphorical experience. And it makes me wonder, Ty, you started taking us back to the 80s and stuff like that, and we've made a few references here and there about people kind of going backwards in their misappreciation for a hero or an anti-hero or somebody who should not be lauded. And this, to me, kind of starts to go back to the 80s and the idea of political correct.
Oh,
And I've been thinking a lot about this lately because we are so deep in this bifurcation of our culture, where it is we have this line. The line is very distinct now. We, don't talk to me about purple states, okay? But at some point, we, and I'm going to say we, meaning progressives, liberals, the people on the left side of the aisle, we thought that the best way to get people to not be terrible is by making fun of the bad ideas that they like, the deplorable.
I think that's the one word that got him elected, actually, in 2016.
Could very well
I think you're
been.
right.
Yeah.
Could very well have been.
Yeah.
And this thing that, you, Mark, were saying, we wound up with somebody in the White House that made it okay for people to be deplorable.
Well,
well, to misbehave and to enjoy misbehaving. That's what I meant.
And
Yeah.
this is where I'd really like to
Exactly.
jump in, and bring it back to, anti-heroes in our media. I think that is the appeal, and why people get it wrong is because these types of characters give us permission not only to have our darker impulses and experience and own our darker instincts and impulses, but to actually act on them, to actually use them. And this is
To
crystallized.
celebrate them.
To celebrate them, absolutely. And this is crystallized for me in one single character who is completely misunderstood, and that is Tyler Durden.
Oh, interesting. That's not where I thought you were going to go.
Who is that?
Tyler Durden is the imaginary construct of Jack in the film Fight Club.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes, awesome.
Honestly,
it is Jack's psychosis.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm on board.
And I actually recently saw another YouTube. I'll have to find the link so we can share it, because it's really good food for thought. That the entire movie of Fight Club is completely missed. Everybody missed the point. We all got that Tyler Durden was made up in Jack's head, but what we didn't get was that everybody else was also made up in Jack's head.
That was a big one. She's him too.
And that it was about Jack coming to terms with the fact, his own mental break on finding out that he had testicular cancer.
Yeah.
That's the postulate of this.
This is really good, Chris.
Video.
One of the things that just struck me was that what we're dealing with is a kind of catharsis for people, right? And it's everything they've repressed. And so, Andy, you were talking about is like, well, political correctness. Here's what you're not supposed to do, and here's what you're not. But everybody wants to be politically incorrect in some ways. And when you repress that enough, it's just you're just spring loading the thing to come back, right?
Anything and I think that's really what,
monster.
And it's
yeah,
release.
And I think,
while we wait for Andy, I think you're right.
For a long time. Oh,
you broke up
back?
for a sec. Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah, you're back.
I think that's really what happened, and that's what I'm trying to say. And that is, for the, after the Reagan era, we wound up, the royal left, I guess, wound up making certain things, certain manners of speech, certain ways of approaching topics. No, that's not how we do things. We're trying to be better, and you should be that way. We made certain behaviors. Yeah.
This would be great when you play it back, though. Andy.
Oh yeah.
We'll do this in
And
post.
now
We need to do this more often.
I can't. I'm glad you guys are having fun. I'm finding it extraordinarily frustrating.
I bet. Yeah, we
feel
know.
your frustration, Andy, and I want to tell you that I love you, brother.
We have made it so that an entire half of the is shaming them for 40 years, and now they get to have it their way, and they're going to take it out on us.
Well,
the entire political
and that's why
thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The entire political philosophy of the right for the last 20 years has been owning the libs.
Yeah.
There hadn't been anything. There's no policies, right? So
unfortunately,
you know, I remember when we used to be able to rely on them for at least that, but it's like, no, but I think we've really nailed something here.
And if that really surprises any of us, given what we've just laid out,
yeah,
I mean, then we're the fools, you know, because we've sort of constructed this. We've set this up by not finding a better way to engage for the past 40 years.
And then when we do engage, it's with this saccharine, platitudinous garbage of, well, we need to have a conversation. We need, and all these key words. Maybe what we should do is just shut the fuck up and stop being so morally critical. And you know me, I don't like using the word morals, but being so morally critical, maybe the right has a good point in that we've been nothing but
dicks,
stuck up. We're the bad kids in high school. We're the mean girls.
That might well be. We're the kids that everybody else hated now, because we're so know-it-all, self-righteous, and now
I think you've got
knee
it here.
deep in this trap that we do for ourselves.
I'm going to say, yeah.
Me too.
Me three.
My question is this. My question is, so
and
coming
my
I tried to give him space.
I wonder if his phone finally. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
Oh,
there he
nope.
is. He's
And back.
Wait.
I don't know. Am I back?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. Are you?
Only you can say, Andy.
Man.
My question is this.
What a day.
All this media that we're talking about, right? Where people feel like they know what the court system and the legal system are. That they're now experts because they've watched Law and Order, or they're behaving a little bit differently because they are at some point looking up to Dex, right? Or looking up to Breaking Bad and going, yeah, that guy, yeah. Where is that going to leave us in the next couple of years? Because, you know, the brain eats what you feed it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't think it's going to leave us anywhere in the next couple of years. I think the right thing to have said is, where did it take us? Where did it put us? Because we're here now. And we're here now in no small part, in my mind, expressly because of the fact that, and it at the feet of the internets, you know, the internets that I barely have access to right now, that you can look anything up that you want. It's available to you immediately. And as we've said so often in this show of ours, that, you know, if you want, you can find a very comfortable echo chamber, and, you know, they will pad your cell for you so that you're very comfortable and feed you exactly what you want to hear in order to support your own
Well,
thought.
the algorithm will actually put you in it, right?
Yeah. 24/7, 365, hot and cold running, information, misinformation, and disinformation.
And Mark, I think, and I think what you just said is, it's going to speak to our next show where hopefully I'll actually have an internet connection. And that is this idea of the algorithm. And seriously, I offer to anybody, go to YouTube, use a secondary account, okay? But go to YouTube and start typing in just random things, but kind of consistent random things. Pick 3 or 4 topics, and then come back over the next couple days and watch how YouTube suggests you things. Because as a YouTuber of one degree or another, I've noticed in the last 6 months that the algorithm has shifted, and it is very rapid in suddenly supporting your appetite for something that you typed in. It's not just 1 or 2 in your feed anymore. Your feed suddenly flips overnight, and you are being barraged. You are fire hosed.
I've seen that too. I've seen that too.
You know,
Hi.
So we have YouTube on our television, right? As well as on our phones at home. Now, my account is signed into on the television because I get, you know, YouTube TV and some other things. If my lovely partner gets on the television and starts scouting around for some of the things that she likes, my algorithm gets messed.
Yeah, your next experience. And that happens to us too.
I'm not getting Rick Beato anymore. I'm not getting the music channels that now I'm getting classical stuff and cat tricks.
And that, you can thank your wife for that. It's better for you.
It is true. It's true.
No, same thing happens when Ryan comes over and doesn't swap YouTube accounts and starts showing my partner Heather the latest film trailers. Suddenly I've got, you know, all this random ass anime stuff in my feed. It kind of goes back to, and again, we're in the future, so this is future me talking to past listeners about a show that hasn't aired yet. Essentially,
the time distortion
the big
is really
tech
working
leaders. Oh yeah, great. The big tech leaders, you know, who are essentially making decisions about where technology should go, taking us all with them.
Give us one of the headroom stutters.
I'm not going to, because I'm going to lose my shit here in a minute, but we're wrapping up right now. Food for thought, because, you know, we're headed into probably what's safe to say is the most contentious presidential election in the history of this nation. And maybe just take some time to think about how to interface with both technology and the people around you. And I don't, you know, I have made it a personal thing over the last year or so to stop poking people in the eye about what they believe, because at the end of it all, I seem to be the one with something in my eye. So, for good or ill, this is the show, people. We're going to be coming back next month with new technology. Many warts with like those 2 hairs going in different directions out of it.
That are just like
and all. So anyways, look, do us a favor, just keep watching, put up with us, tolerate my bullshit and my bad excuses for not getting shit done. I'll show you guys my shed in the next episode, but until next time, everybody, I'm Andy, that's Dr. Mark, that's Chris, that's Ty, we're the hats. It is what it is. Keep your hat on. We may end up miles from here. See you later. Bye-bye. Out. Oh my God.